I remember her cremation as if it were yesterday. We had a 4-hour Hindu death ritual at my grandparents' home. Since Nani had no sons of her own, my father, her son-in-law, performed the last rites under the guidance of a pandit, a Hindu priest. Friends and acquaintances came by to offer condolences to my mom, her sisters, and my grandfather, whom we called Nana. They followed the hearse to Ehnarsey, a coastal cremation area facing the Atlantic Ocean. Nani's funeral was the first one I was allowed to attend at 19 years of age. As a child, I had always heard, women do not go to funerals, and you can only attend if it's a close family member. The smoky, barren, and blue-skied funeral grounds were large enough for 4 funerals to take place at the same time. 3 of them were already in progress when we arrived. The pyres crackled and roared, while mourners' tears flowed in silence. The air was heavy with incense and camphor, and there were bits of coconut and marigold strewn around, alongside cans of vegetable ghee which we were going to use for the pyre. It all seemed so proper, so diligent, so cultured, this final goodbye to our loved ones. But there was a skinny black stray dog roaming around the pyres in desperation. 6 limp nipples hung from its body, and its tongue from its mouth. The dog's attempts of licking the cans went futile. Pallbearers of the other families shooed it away while wrinkling their nose up at the creature. The tongue is the root of evil, the creator of sin, so we leave it open so we can give fire to that first. My mom and her sister stood by, and they were silent. Nobody was crying, until the pandit uttered a final mantra and my father lit the pyre. Then their bodies swayed and they wept uncontrollably. Most attendees left halfway through the cremation, whilst my father and his brothers-in-law remained. My Nana was the only one standing there, and he held his daughters together, making sure that he was their pillar in that time. All this took me back to a conversation with my father when I was only 6 years old. He said, "We don't bury someone when they die. We cremate the body and we put the ashes in the river." And little me was only beginning to understand about our practices as members of the Indian diaspora settled in the Caribbean. So there won't be a grave? What if we miss the person and want to visit them someday? I asked. He said, "Yes, that's right. Hindus cremate the body because it helps us let go of our attachment with the soul. And cremating them helps the soul attain liberation." I took it as a given. But that day when I saw the flame engulf Nani's body, I was hit with the realization of mortality. How people usually have smooth, soft, baby-like skin at birth, only for it to age over the years. You get scars, melasma, wrinkles, and the bones become weak, the teeth become weak, your hair turns gray and falls out, and bodies grow weary and frail. The old wrinkly skin droops from our arms, legs, and bellies like a magnet drawing it back to the earth. Nani had the saggiest skin I had ever seen. It sagged more and more with each passing year. It hung from her arms like jiggly wings, and from her belly like a deflated tire. Once my mom asked me to feed her, and I carefully guided a spoonful of soup to her mouth. She was too weak to eat, so I was watching her and watching the saggy skin, and I looked at it and I thought, is that going to be every woman's fate? And a week later, she was admitted to the hospital for thrombosis. "Everything hurts. I'd like to go to my creator and end this life," she complained. Her limbs were swollen and blue. My mom comforted her with saying, "Oh, Mom, don't worry, you'll be home soon." She died a week later. I didn't share the tear when I heard of it. It occurred to me that I wouldn't be seeing her saggy, wrinkly skin anymore. But I did feel sad for my mother. My mother was the perfect child, an obedient, good child, and a favorite of my grandmother. Her death only made me aware of how demanding she could be and how much she disapproved of me. She insisted I should be a good girl, one who doesn't argue, one who doesn't ask questions, and one who does everything her elders say. Stop asking why, do as you're told, and don't touch anything were her 3 famous lines to me. And if that wasn't enough, she would complain to my mom, oh, she brought sand into my house, she didn't eat her food, every time she picked me up. So I felt no connection to her at all. I thought, well, this is really hard, but the only loving words were the traditional greetings we exchanged at the door, namaste. And when I'd massage her aching, bony feet, she would say, may God bless you with a good husband. And I thought, is that all that matters in life? It wasn't solely my experience. Nani was a difficult to please person in general. And my mom loved her and defended her, obviously, by saying, your grandmother was hard on you because she was old and ailing. And Nani loved me a lot, and you too. And that was true. She was old and ailing. Started much before I was born. She suffered a couple of miscarriages in her childbearing years. Then we found out she had an enlarged heart, which caused strain to her lungs. Her sore, bony feet, she wore those really big cushioned slippers. And doctors said her heart wouldn't survive if she had any more interventions. She had 2 hip surgeries by the time she was 70. I'd watch her walk up the stairs holding on to the rails and, putting her head down and breathing, sighing at every step. I pitied her. The wrinkly skin was hanging around her body, and I really pitied that old woman, but that was it. Nani wouldn't let her ailments affect her household, though. She got up early each day to supervise the housekeeper and the gardener. She sat on a wooden stool in the kitchen to cook for my grandfather and herself. She accompanied him to the supermarket while he pushed her along in a wheelchair to do the groceries. And family members called her for home remedies. Community members called her for, what should I name my child according to Hindu astrology? And she was a good girl according to Indian society, someone who'd gotten married early, had 1 children, and been the perfect housewife. And she always honored her husband's wishes. My Nana didn't know how to brew a cup of tea, clean the house, or even do the dishes when she was alive. Nani was born in India in the 1930s. A woman in Indian culture is taught to live for others and put her needs and dreams aside. She risks being ostracized for having an opinion, saying no, or choosing herself. And this upbringing had been extended, you guessed it, to my mother and her sisters and me. And consequently, 2 of them sacrificed their careers for their marriages. And my mom and aunts repeatedly tried molding me into a good girl from childhood, but I retaliated. They found that type of confidence disturbing, but hey-ho. Nearly a decade after Nani's death, I was playing in the garden with Polly, my pet blue and gold macaw, which is a very large-sized parrot. And I've had her for over 20 years. She has 2 bare white patches on the sides of her face, which we call cheeks in the avian world. And when you pinch them, they sort of sag and they have lots of wrinkles. It's very cute to see. So my favorite thing to do was just tug at it lightly and watch it go back magically as if nothing had happened. So that day when I did that, I had this realization. I said to her, your wrinkly skin is just like Nani's, my birdie. And she mimicked my laughter. That's what parrots do, they mimic. And she continued eating her cherry. And I also realized Polly was my dear and beloved pet, but she was caged. We had bought her from an illegal seller. She was poached from her nest. She was dependent on me for food, for playing, for being outside of her cage. It was even more dangerous to let her go than keep her caged. But being caged was all Nani knew. She became dependent on others for survival. She could only play the roles taught to her, and she became accustomed to captivity. Eventually she caved in. Her bones became mush, her heart swelled, and her lungs began to weep. And her skin pulled away under the heavy burdens of womanhood. Polly's cheek showed me that Nani wasn't to blame for pushing her expectations on the next generation. She had been a victim of molding herself. I felt a lump in my throat and tears rolling down my cheeks. They told me what I'd never felt for Nani before: empathy. I felt it for her, the women who preceded her, and the ones who were still withering under the burdens of womanhood and society. I forgave Thani. She was finally free. But that was also the day I realized my father was right. We don't bury someone when they die. Thank you.